Hello friends, welcome back to CSharp.net online training video series. Today we are going to discuss operator overloading in C Sharp with examples, right? In our previous video, what we discussed function overloading or method overloading, and we discussed that by using method overloading we can achieve static polymorphism, right? Another way to implement compile time or static polymorphism is by using operator overloading. So today we are going to discuss how we can achieve compile time polymorphism using the concept called operator overloading, right? So let us start today's session. By overloading the operator, what we can achieve is we can give additional meaning to the operator like plus, minus, multiplication, division, and equals, which is by default supposed to work with only on standard data types like integer, float, character, etc. It's a type of a polymorphism in which an operator is overloaded to give it the user defined meaning. What it means? Okay, to understand its meaning, let me go to the Visual Studio, right? And here I have written some code. So you can see here I'm writing one statement, two statement. So this is a very simple statement. I'm declaring one integer variable x, another integer variable y, and here what I'm doing, I'm just adding those numbers, right? Whatever value stored in x plus I'm adding with y and storing in the result variable, right? And here this plus operator is nothing but one operator which is going to do the arithmetic operations add between these two number, and this operator is supposed to work with built-in data types like integer, character, right, the float, all these things, right? But in this case that is fine, but my question is that can we write like this? I just want to add object 1 with object 2, and I want to store the result in object 3. Is that possible? No. By default, it is not possible. If you try, you will say that plus operator cannot be applied on operand of type program and program because this is a user-defined data type. This is not a built-in built-in data type. So you cannot use this plus operator on user-defined data type. That means it is not possible. But using operator overloading, can we make this to work? Yes, we can make this plus operator to work with user-defined data type, and we can do this by overloading this operator. How to overload this operator to work with obj1 and obj2, which is nothing but user-defined type, that we will see in today's session, right? So what is operator overloading? In C Sharp, it is possible to make operators to work with user-defined data types like classes. In this case, you can see currently the plus operator is not working with classes, right? But using operator overloading will make this to work, right? That means C Sharp has the ability to provide the operator with a special meaning for data type. This ability is known as operator overloading, right? If we make this operator to work this class data type, right? That means this is nothing but we are overloading this operator. Then, for example, we can overload plus operator in a class like string so that we can concatenate two strings just by using the plus operator. Using operator overloading, we can specify more than one meaning for an operator in one scope. The purpose of operator overloading is to provide a special meaning of an operator for a user-defined data type. So in this case, you can see this is one scope. This is one class, right? Inside this class, I'm using this plus operator with built-in data type, and this operator is going to perform addition, arithmetic addition operation. But in this case, I am going to use the same operator within the same scope, but in this case, it is not going to perform any addition operation on built-in data type. Rather, this operator is going to perform a different operation, right? As we are providing the same operator to a different operation, that means within the same scope, this operator, if using with built-in data type like integer, going to perform addition operation, and if the same operator, if it is used with user-defined data type, then it is going to perform a different operation, right? That means the same operator is going to perform different operation based on the operand on which we are working, right? If we are working with integer data type, it is going to perform addition operation. If we are going to work with a user-defined data type, it is going to perform a different operation. What is that different operation? That we will see, right? So now we need to understand how we can overload a operator in C Sharp. To overload an operator in C Sharp, we are provided with a special function, or you can say special keyword, or you can say special operator. That name is operator, right? We define the function inside the class or structure which object or variables we want to overload operator to work with. For example, in this case, I want this operator to work with the program class, means we need to define one function within this program class, and we need to overload that operator within that type, right? That is what we need to understand, right? The syntax for operator overloading is as follows. You can see public static return type operator op type t, and this is the statement. Here type is nothing but it might be a class or it might be a struct, right? Let us understand the syntax. So this is nothing but your access specifier. Access specifier is basically public, private, protected, and it specifies decide the scope. Who can access this method and who cannot access this method. And the operator function, that is what we are going to overload, that should be a static function. That's why you can see we are making this method as static. Return type, what type of value this method is going to return, that is nothing but your return type. Operator, it's a keyword and you cannot change this keyword. So operator, it's basically keyword. OP is nothing but a symbol. Symbol means it is the operator which we want to overload. Which operator we want to overload? Plus operator. Here it is going to be plus. Which operator we want to overload? Plus plus. We need to specify plus plus. Which operator you want to overload? I want to overload minus operator. Then you have to specify minus operator. And type to type T means on which type this method is defined. That type we need to specify. And the statement, whatever business logic you want to write, you have to write within this method, right? This is nothing but what I mentioned here. Return type is the return type of the function. Operator is a keyword. It is the symbol of the operator that we want to overload, like plus, greater than, less than, in any kind of a symbol, right? Type must be a class or a struct, right? It might be a class or a struct, but it cannot be an interface, right? It can also have a more parameter. Currently, it is taking one parameter. As per your business requirement, you might be pass some more parameter, and it should be a static function. You can see we are making this method as static, right? So what is now let's proceed and understand more information related to this operator overloading. We have operators for performing addition. We use this plus operator to perform addition. We use the star operator to perform multiplication. We use minus operator to perform subtraction. Increment operator is there plus plus. Decrement operator is there minus minus. So there are multiple operators that we can overload. That means to perform various kind of things that are these operators are available, right? If you want to perform addition operator, you need to use this plus. This operator. If you want to perform subtraction, then you need to use this operator. And these operators are meant for some specific data types. What do you mean by this statement? This is the important point that we need to understand. These operators are meant for some specific data. What it means? It means if you are declaring to string type variable, then you cannot use this multiplication operator. That is not possible, right? And if you are declaring to integer type variable, right, then you can use this operator, but you cannot use this I mean, if you are going to perform addition operation on two integer number, you can use plus, right? But if you are going to perform if you are declaring to string variable, then you cannot use this multiplication operation, right? That means some specific operators are meant for specific data type, right? If you are creating one boolean variable, right, then that true or false, then that is going to work with only boolean data type. You cannot do an addition operation on some boolean value. You cannot write it true plus true, right? That is not possible, right? So that means what? Now some specific operators mean for some specific data types, right? And we have already discussed in our operator video that what are the different kind of operators available in CSharp. Unary operator, binary operator, comparison operator, conditional operator, assignment operators, right? So you can see assignment operator cannot be overloaded. Conditional logical operators cannot be overloaded directly. Comparison operators can be overloaded. Binary operator takes two arguments, takes two operand and can be overloaded. Unary operator takes one operand and can be overloaded. So you can see which are the operator you can overload and which are the operators you cannot overload, right? So the above diagram shows built-in operators, and these operators are operating on built-in data types. Built-in data types means you can say primitive data types like integer, character, float, boolean. All these are nothing but your built-in data type. Like addition can be performed on integer float. If we are defining our own data type, like if we are suppose we are creating one matrix, right? So this is nothing but your class. Class nothing is nothing but your user-defined data type. Then can we use plus operator for adding two matrices and the store result in another object of type matrix like this? So can you do this? No, you cannot do this. By default, you cannot do this. If you want to perform this kind of operation, then you need to overload this plus operator within this matrix class. So once you overload this plus operator within this matrix class, then you can perform this operator. Now let us see how we can do this, right? So for our one data type, that is user-defined data type, we can overload for plus operator, right? So plus operator is an operator which we can overload. There are various operators that you can overload in CSharp, and the list is given below. So you can see which are the operators you can overload and which are the operators you cannot overload. And plus operator is a binary operator, means it is going to operate on two operand. And you can see this plus operator, I'm operating with A and B, two operand operating on the plus operator. Now let us understand one real-time example to understand this operator overloading concept. And we will also discuss how to overload the plus operator, or you can say binary operator inside a class. Let us take an example of a complex number. So we know what is a complex number. Complex number are written in the form of a plus ip. What is a and what is b? Now a is the real part and ip is nothing but it's the imaginary part, right? Here a is the real part and ip is the imaginary part. What is imaginary? Now here I is nothing but the root of minus 1. So you can see I is nothing but it is equivalent to minus root of minus 1. Square root of minus 1 is undefined, that we know. So we call it as imaginary I, right? Anything multiplied by imaginary number becomes an imaginary number. So here I'm multiplying I with B, means it is also going to become one imaginary number. Here A is an integer number or float number and IB is an imaginary number. So we have two complex number. Then we can add them by their real part with the real and imaginary part with the imaginary. For example, suppose you are having one complex number C1 and another complex number C2, right? C1 is nothing but 3 plus 7y, C2 is nothing but your 5 plus 2y. Then can we add this in mathematics? Yes, we can add this. So how we can add this? Now the C1 real we need to add with the C2 real, and C1 imaginary we need to add with C2 imaginary. And if we add these two number to complex number, then what will be the result? 8 plus 9i, and we can store that inside in another complex number, let's say C3. Yes, we can perform addition of a two complex number in mathematics. That is possible. Can we do the same thing in programmatically? Yes, we can do the same thing in programmatically. And for that, what we need to do? We need to overload the plus operator, right? Let us first write a class for our complex number, right? So this is, okay, let me remove these things. So what I'm doing here, I'm creating one class complex, right? So in this case, you can see I'm having two private integer variable, real and imaginary, and then I'm having one public constructor which is taking two parameter, and in this case you can see r and I. Whatever value we are passing to r, that will be stored inside my real private variable, and whatever value I'm passing to I, that will be stored inside my imaginary variable. And further, if you remember, I initialize this parameter with default value, that is 0. So once we initialize this parameter with default value, then passing value to this parameter and this parameter is optional. If you pass, then that passed value will be stored inside R and I. If you are not passing, then what value you are initializing with these two variable, that initialized value is going to be stored, right? That means this public constructor, what we have defined in our class, it is going to work like a parameterized constructor as well as parameterless constructor. To make you understand what I'm trying to do, I'm creating C1 and here I'm not passing any parameter, right? So in this case, I'm not passing any parameter and I'm creating another object called C2, and in this time I'm going to pass some values, right? Some values means I'm going to pass 10 and 5. In this case also it is accepting, right? Now look at this. When I'm selecting this, so this constructor is selected. That means if I'm not passing in this statement, right, number 8, I'm not passing any values while creating the object, then what value will be stored inside r and I means it is going to store 0 and 0. But in this case, again, see, when I'm selecting the second constructor, again this constructor is selected. That means, but in this time I'm passing 10 and 5 means what? Now 10 is going to store inside this r and 5 is going to store inside this I variable. That means this constructor is going to behave like a parameter-less constructor as well as parameterized constructor. Right now what I'm trying to do, my requirement is to perform the addition operation. Then how we can do this, right? So generally what we do is we need to create one method. Let's say we are creating one method called add method, and to this add method we are passing two complex number. So two complex number which we want to add, we are passing as a parameter to this method, and within this method what we are doing, we are creating a temporary variable which is also the complex type. And then what we are doing now, c1 real, I'm just adding with c2 real and storing that result inside the temp.real, and again c1 imaginary I'm adding with c2 imaginary, and whatever the result I'm storing inside the temporary variable imaginary temp.imaginary, and finally I'm returning that temp. Right now from the main method, what you will do, you will create one instance c1. By passing 37, you can create another instance, and then you can call this add method, and add method is a static method. And from which class this method belongs to complex class. Then how we can call this method complex dot add? But if you are calling this method, you need to pass two object. And the object are of which type? Complex type. So here I'm creating one object c1 of complex type, and I'm creating another c2 object which is also complex type. Then to this add method I'm passing c1 and c2. Then what type of data this method is going to return? It is going to return complex type. So whatever value is going to return, that I'm storing inside this c3 variable, and which is also the same type. Right now to understand this, what I'm trying to do is I'm copying this code and I'm storing this statement, right? So you can see this is the same complex constructor which is going to behave like a parameterized constructor as well as parameter-less constructor, right? This is the same add method which we have just discussed, right? So this method taking two parameters c1 and c2, and it is just doing the calculation part and returning the result, right? So c1 imaginary with c2 imaginary store in a temp imaginary, then c1 real, it is adding with c2 real and storing the output in the temp real, and finally we are returning the temp. And this is the display method on which object we are calling this method. It will print the real value with the imaginary value preceded with the symbol I, right? And in this case you can see I'm creating one complex object calling the display method, creating another complex object calling the display method, and in this statement I'm calling another complex object and calling the display method. So in this case it will display 3 plus 7i, because 3 is the real and 7 is the imaginary for the c1 object. For c2 it is going to store 5.2i, right? 5.i2, and in this case it is going to store c1.c2. So 5 plus 3 8 plus I9. So that is what you will see. So let's run the application and see the output. Right, the application is still running, right? Yeah, you can see it is displaying the output as expected. 3 plus I7, 5 plus I2, so 8 plus I9. This is how this program is working. Now let us understand the code, what is happening, right? So now let us understand how this functions. So whenever we are calling complex.add c1, in the above statement we call the static add function using the class name by passing c1 and c2 as parameter. Once we call the add method, then the add method start executing the code as follows. Inside the add function, we are creating a temporary complex object by executing the below statement. So when this statement, you can see this statement. So when this statement is executed, one temporary object is created, right? Then we execute the below statement. So in this case, C1 real value, it is going to add with the C2 real value, and whatever the result, that result is going to store inside the temp real, right? This statement will store the addition of values of C1's real and C2 reals into temp real. Then we are executing the following statement. Again, we are doing adding the imaginary part of C1 and C2 object and storing the result inside the temp imaginary variable, right? And the above statement will return. And finally, what we are doing in the final, we are returning the temp object from the add method by executing the below statement, right? So then we have written temp object from the function. We can understand the above statement here. So this is C1, this is C2, and this is temp. C1 real 3, C2 real 5. So 5 plus 3, 8. So it will store inside the real of temp 8. Again, we are doing this addition, imaginary 7, imaginary 2. So 9 will be stored in temp's imaginary. This diagram represents that we have stored the result of addition of C1 and C2 into temp variable, which is of a complex type. Temp will be written by the add function, right? So inside the main function, we just store the temp data in C3 function. So now if you look at this statement, right, here after calling this add method, that add method return that temp object, right, return that temp object, and we are storing that temp object inside this C3 variable. So you can see whatever data we have in temp, that will be stored inside the C3 variable. So that is what we have implemented. But in this case, we are not implementing method overloading, right? Because see, understanding the logic is important. Once you understand the logic, then we can easily implement the rest of the thing. Understanding the logic is the most important thing. We have finished it. Now let us see how to make it as operator overloading. Now we want to convert the function into an operator. So instead of writing complex dot add C and C3, so what we want to write like this, complex C3 equals to, so instead of writing this statement, what I want to write, I want to write like this. Complex C3 equals to C2 plus C1. C2 plus C1 or C1 plus C2. That is what I want to write. But at this time, if you look, we are getting this error because the C1 doesn't exist. So what is C1, C2? This is small c, this is small c, right? So you can see the plus operator cannot be applied to operand of type complex and complex, right? By default, you cannot apply this plus operator with user-defined data type. That is not possible. Then what we need to do? We need to convert this function to a operator, right? We need to convert this function to a operator. How we will do this? How we will do this means this is our syntax. So public static complex. So instead of add, what I am going to do, I am writing operator clause. So this add method, right, what in our example will be replaced with the operator clause. And the rest of the thing are going to be same. So what I'm trying to do, now instead of this add method, okay, let me copy this one, okay, comment this one, and what I'm trying to do, I'm instead of add, what I'm trying to do, I'm making this as OPRAT operator plus. So once I make this as operator plus, that means now we are overloading this operator. And we are overloading this operator in which class? We are overloading this operator in plus class. And what this operator is doing, it is going to add to complex number, right? Now this operator is going to work with complex operator, complex data type. So once we make these changes, now come to the main method, and you can see the error is gone. Why this error is gone? Because we are overloading this operator, right? We are overloading the behavior of this operator so that this operator can now work with a complex type, right? Complex type means we are this operator is taking two parameter, complex C1 and C2, and now you can see we can add two object, right? So C1 is nothing but, so in this case, let me change this one C1 and make this as C2 so that it will be better understand. So whatever C1, this is complex object 1, and C2 is nothing but your complex object 2, and this, whenever this statement is executed, these things are going to be executed, right? This is how you can overload the operator, right? Everything inside the function will remains the same. You can see everything is remain same. What change we have done is we are just replacing this add with operator plus. Now plus operator is overloaded for complex class. This is called operator overloading. Now you can just write plus to get the addition of the complex object, right? So what we have discussed, that is the thing that you need to understand, right? In C-sharp, the operator function are same as normal function. So in this case, if you look at this statement, right, this operator function, what we have discussed, is same as the normal function. The difference is that here we have write the function name. Instead of a function name, we have to write the operator keyword followed by the operator symbol that what we want to overload. This is the only difference, right? So that's it for today. In the next video, we are going to discuss method overriding. That means method overriding means we are going to discuss dynamic polymorphism in CSharp, right? So thank you for watching this video. In case you need the text version of this video, right, the text document of this video, then please check the video description section. The link for the same I will be provided in the video description section. Right? Thank you for watching this video.